Welcome everyone to another meeting of Toastmasters Bay to Bay. I'm your Toastmaster, Art Maurice, and Bay to Bay covers areas from San Francisco all the way down to San Jose, as far south as Monterey. And if you want to find out more about meetings and clubs near you, please go to www.d4tm.org. Today we have an interesting meeting because instead of being only half hour with only 2 speakers and 2 evaluators, we're going to do a full hour. And this is what a normal Toastmaster speech would go like. So we start out with speakers, and then after that we move to table topics, and I'll let that person tell you about that. And then we move over to evaluation. So you get the whole feeling of what a Toastmasters meeting would be like. Now today I want to start with our grammarian. His name is Stan Ing, and he's going to give us the word of the day. Everyone, please welcome Stan Ing.
My role as a grammarian is to watch out for basic rules of English grammar. So I'll be giving you some feedback about what you did right and what you did wrong. I'm also the word master, and we encourage increased vocabulary by introducing a word of the day. And the word of the day is meander. And its meaning is to proceed by taking a winding or indirect course. So this can be used either literally, as in taking advantage of her time off. She meandered through the valley on her day off. Or it can be figurative, as in the speaker lost the attention of his audience as his talk meandered on. So please use this word, and I'll be listening for who uses the word of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Speakers, when you're speaking, don't meander behind the blue cloth. All right, in our Toastmaster meetings, we try to have fun, we try to have a good time, and part of that is humor. And we usually start out with a joke. So I want to introduce our humorist. Her name is Robin Pomerantz. Please welcome Robin Pomerantz.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. From A Cat's Diary, day 983 of my captivity. My captors continue to taunt me by hanging bizarre little dangling objects. They dine lavishly on fresh meat, while the other inmates and I dine on hash or some sort of dry nuggets. Although I make my contempt for the rations perfectly clear, I nevertheless must eat something in order to keep up my strength. The only thing that keeps me going is the thought of escape. In an attempt to discuss them, I once again vomit on the carpet. Today, I decapitated a mouse and dropped its headless body at their feet. I had hoped that this would strike fear into their hearts, since it clearly demonstrates what I am capable of. However, they merely made condescending comments about what a good little hunter I am. Idiots. There was some sort of assembly of their accomplices tonight. I was placed in solitary confinement for the duration of the event. However, I could hear the voices and smell the food. I overheard that my confinement was due to the power of something called allergies. I must learn what this means and how to use it to my advantage. Today, I was almost successful in an attempt to assassinate one of my tormentors by meandering around his feet as he was walking. I must try this again tomorrow, at the top of the stairs. I am convinced that the other prisoners here are flunkies and snitches. The dog receives special privileges. He is regularly released and seems willing to return. He is obviously quite dim. The bird has got to be an informant. I observe him communicate with the guards regularly. I am certain that he reports my every move. My captors have arranged protective custody for him in an elevated cell, so he is safe. For now. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Robin. I like birds too. Moving on, we're going to go now into our speech section of the meeting. And the way we do this is I introduce the evaluator. That person not only evaluates the speaker, but he also is going to introduce the speaker and tell us what the goals and objectives are. So please welcome our first speaker, who's going to introduce our first evaluator is going to introduce the first speaker, Richard Bannon. Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Tonight it's my pleasure to welcome up to the lectern Mr. Scott Gearing. Scott is one of our stars. Scott has been at Toastmasters only 2 years, but in that brief time he has already distinguished himself in multiple competitions which he's either participated in or won at the club, area, district, and division level. Scott is going to be giving a humorous speech tonight. His objectives are to amuse his audience using a variety of techniques, including props, vocal variety, and direct interaction with the audience. His speech is entitled Compatibility. Please help me welcome Mr. Scott Gearing.
Hello. I don't know that we've met, but perhaps you've already seen my edgy, provocative photograph on Match.com. Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, it was that philosopher of our age, Forrest Gump, who told us that life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And in my life, I found that to be most true in the realm of internet dating. Now, I got into internet dating late in the game. I'm 46 years old. I found myself in my mid-40s, not yet having met that special someone I told myself I was looking for. And I was very confused about this. I didn't know who to talk to, but I realized it's usually the people you live with who have the best understanding of who you are. I decided that's where I needed to go. I went to my breakfast table the next morning. I sat down, and I said, "Why do you think I'm still single, Mom?" She said, "Well, honey, maybe you just haven't yet met the right girl." Well, that didn't help me too much at all. And don't get me wrong, my mom's a great gal, but I'm trying to cultivate a long-term relationship with a woman who didn't give birth to me. But what I realized at that moment is what I needed to do was to widen my net and go to the internet with its promise of millions of women from around the globe. Women who might be seeking a relationship with somebody like myself. And so what I did, I sat down, I wrote a little bit about myself, I sent in some photographs, and I sent my money to Match.com. And I tried to portray myself as a bohemian San Franciscan, which in retrospect was probably a bit of a mistake, because within a couple of days I began receiving profiles from women which, if not more provocative than my own, some of them were absolutely bizarre. And I'd like to share some of them with you this evening. One profile I received from a woman was, she had very attractive photographs of herself. She was 38 years old, divorced, and talked about in her profile at great length about how much she enjoyed praying and going to church and reading the Bible. But what was interesting to me was that on the same Match.com I found photos of the same woman on a different profile, again saying she's 38 years old and divorced, this time talking about how much she enjoyed drinking and dancing and reading erotica. I guess I can respect that because I think it's important to have balance in your life. I guess my question was, if I asked her out on a date, which of the two was actually going to show up? Another woman, I received her profile, and she had, again, a very attractive photograph of herself, and she talked at great length talking about how she had long hair and a sexy body and was seeking a relationship with a man who had great oral hygiene. I flatter myself as an oral hygiene kind of guy. I brush and floss twice a day, every day. You, sir, do you brush and floss twice a day, every day?
No.
No? Huh. Sorry. I brush and floss twice a day, every day, but still I had a lot of insecurities. I mean, what if I wasn't good enough? What if I wasn't hygienic enough to meet her special needs? I began to notice things about the photos that women posted of themselves on Match. Some of them would post photos of like mountains or sunsets, which didn't really tell me very much about them. And then some of them would post photos of many of their cats, which doesn't say much, except perhaps they're a crazy cat lady. But then there was one woman in particular, her username was Smooch Mama, and it was her photo that really caught my attention. Now, Smooch Mama in her profile talks about the fact that she really appreciates a gentleman, how much she enjoyed going to Las Vegas, but it was that photo that caught my attention, because in her photo, she's looking at the camera, and she's smiling pleasantly, she's turned to the side, and she has her hands on her stomach, and she's very clearly about 7 or 8 months pregnant. And I'm thinking, my first thoughts are, well, somebody been doing more than smooching Mama. And then it occurred to me, is this a recent photo? Because if it is, I've got an idea. Take another photo. 3 or 4 months from now, problem solved. But it made me realize maybe I'm too hung up on the superficial issues when it comes to trying to get into a long-term relationship. Maybe I really need to focus on the real core issues of compatibility. And so I went to those kings of compatibility, eHarmony.com. Now in eHarmony's literature, they talk about the great lengths that they go to in order to help you find your soulmate. They help you find those persons that you're most closely aligned with, that the core essential values that are so important for any long-term relationship. And I sat down at my computer and I filled out an online personality profile, about 217 questions. And I took great care to make sure that I was as honest and forthright as I could be. And I hit the send button, and I was very excited because I knew it was just a matter of days, maybe even hours, and I would soon have the contact information for women from around the globe that I was most closely aligned with, those who were most closely aligned to the kind of person that I was looking for in my life. As it turns out, it only took a few minutes, and I got an email from Dr. Neil Clark Warren, who's the founder of eHarmony.com, and I'd like to read for you an excerpt from the email that he sent me that evening. He said this: "Dear Scott, eHarmony is based on a complex matching system developed through extensive research with married couples. And if we find that we're not able to match a user using our personality profiles, we feel it's only fair to inform them early in the process. Unfortunately, we're not able to make our profiles work for you. We hope you understand and regret our inability to provide service for you at this time." Well, this made me feel very upset, because here I am trying to step into the internet dating universe, and Dr. Neil Clark Warren says there's nobody in the universe that I'm compatible with. So I have decided this evening to take again my search to a whole new level. Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, my name is Scott Gearing, and I am here tonight to meet women. Interesting women, exciting women. Women who do interesting, exciting things like go to Toastmasters International meetings. I'm looking to meet women who are able to speak in complete sentences without using crutch words like ah or I'm trying to meet women who can meet me around those core issues of compatibility like honesty and faithfulness and good oral hygiene. Ladies, I'm Scott Gearing, and my phone number is 415-55... You're supposed to be writing this part down. Ready? Here. Ready? 415-555-1234. 415-555-1234. Ladies, I'm Scott Gearing. I'm all about dancing, dental floss, and good public speaking skills, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Great job, Scott. Great job. You know, I also went to a different version. It's called Matches.com, but it was just pyromaniacs. All right, so moving on. I want to bring up our second evaluator, and again, his job is to introduce the speaker, well, also to evaluate the speaker, but introduce him and tell us his objectives. Please welcome Niels Tonis. Niels Tonis.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests. I'm here to introduce Mark Stiving. Mark Stiving is the member of no less than 3 different Toastmasters clubs, and he's gracing us with his presence tonight. He has a PhD in pricing. He has taught pricing at Ohio State University. He has consulted about pricing, and he most enjoys consulting about pricing for small companies. He's a pricing expert, so to say. Tonight he will be talking from the for the manual Speaking to Inform, project number 4, which is a fact-finding report. His objectives are to prepare a report on a situation, event, or problem or interest to the audience, and deliver sufficient factual information in his report so that the audience can make valid conclusions and a sound decision. I present to you Mark Stiving, Tuesday Tickets. Tuesday Tickets, Mark Stiving.
Mr. Evaluator, Mr. Toastmaster, and fellow Toastmasters. Pricing is a game. It's a game played by evil corporations against little old you and me. The corporations have all the advantages, and nobody plays this game better than the airline industry. This project started last fall. I was online trying to buy tickets to get back to Rochester, Minnesota. We're going to have Christmas with the family. Mom's going to be there, my brother's going to be there, my sister, everybody's going to be there. I go online. $400? No way! And I had to buy 2 tickets. Way too much. So I waited. And then I started worrying because I could hear my mom's voice in my head. Think about all the things she's done for me. Think about how much she loves having the entire family together at Christmas time. Without her saying a single word, I was guilty. So by Tuesday morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to buy the tickets. I get online, look up those flights again. $250. Woohoo! I'm saving money. But I'm a pricing guy. Now I've got to understand this. How is it that $400 tickets on Saturday are $250 tickets on Tuesday? I have absolutely no idea. But as a pricing guy, I'm going to solve this problem. I spent months thinking about it, and I created a theory. Let me spare you the theory, but just know the following. It was brilliant, it was sophisticated, and it was wrong. A couple months ago, a colleague of mine at work, he comes in on a Monday morning and he says, "Hey Mark, I bought tickets for my family. We're going to fly from San Francisco out to New York City." He bought them on the weekend. Tom, no, you didn't buy these tickets on the weekend because if you just wait till Tuesday, they're so much less expensive. So being a good friend, the next day, Tuesday morning, I went online to check his tickets. I wanted to know how much he was going to pay. And it turns out that if he'd have waited until Tuesday, he'd have paid less. More, I mean. He would have paid more on Tuesday. So now I'm having a problem with my theory. It just doesn't seem to work. I had to come up with an explanation. Well, not only that, I had to create a speech to do this task, which was a fact-finding task. And so I'm missing a fact, which is, are tickets cheaper on Tuesdays or not? So I created a research project. And I picked a date about a month out into the future, June 23rd. That was a few weeks ago, but a month out into the future. And I went on American Airlines website. And I said, I want to pick a flight from San Jose, California to Columbus, Ohio, home of the Buckeyes, one-way ticket, and I want to know what the cheapest flight I could find is for June 23rd. And I wrote that down. Next day, I did the exact same thing. I went on American Airlines website, I looked up the cheapest flight I could find for June 23rd, and I wrote that down. After 4 weeks of collecting these prices, I now have an answer. This nice little graph shows us what these prices were like over the course of 4 weeks. Now for your information, these little blue dashes, those are Tuesdays. So Tuesday, price went up. Tuesday, price was flat. Tuesday, price was flat. Tuesday, price went up. Doesn't do much for my theory, does it? But I didn't stop with American Airlines. Since I was spending all this time, I also went to Orbitz. And Orbitz is one of those sites where it puts a whole bunch of different airline tickets on the same spot. And here's what we got from Orbitz. See, Tuesday flat, Tuesday flat, Tuesday higher, Tuesday higher. I'm about to give up, but not yet, because Southwest. You know, Southwest doesn't put their ticket prices on Orbitz. So therefore, we're going to check them out. And they're always less expensive anyway. So you got to check Southwest. And flat, flat, up from Monday, but down from the weekend, and pretty flat. So I got to say, after all this hard work, my theory for Tuesday tickets just doesn't hold water. But I did all this work. Can we learn anything at all? Well, let's take a look at all three on a single graph and see if we can walk away with a few pointers. Point number one, I always thought Southwest was the least expensive airline. Turns out that they're really not, at least far back. So I would certainly suggest checking a site like Orbitz, Expedia, Kayak, other sites that are going to give you multiple different airlines that you could choose from. Southwest itself didn't turn out to be less expensive. Definitely use Orbitz. The final lesson that I would take from this is look at here on Orbitz, we have this nice little dip. What happened, this was Delta Airline, and the price dropped down to $109 for 2 days. That was pretty amazing. If I was actually going to buy that flight, that's the one I wanted to buy, $109 on that day. So what I would suggest that you do is, if you know what the price is going to be ballpark, should be, check these on a regular basis and see if you can find a day where the price drops down. If it drops down, then jump on it. So my Tuesday tickets, they don't really work. But hopefully you came away with a couple ideas on how you can get better ticket prices. And my only suggestion is we're playing the game of pricing. Let's play it the best we can. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mark. Very informative. So does that also mean I shouldn't travel on Tuesdays? Okay, now, so we finished with our speaking portion of the meeting. So now we're going to move into the next portion, which is table topics. Now, I know usually in these TV shows we don't do table topics, but this is special, just for you. What we're going to do is have our table topics master come up. She'll explain what table topics is, and then we'll go into it, and you'll learn all about it. So first, let me bring up Birgit Starmans. Birgit?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Table topics is that part of the Toastmasters meeting that helps us all develop our impromptu speaking skills. That means that we have to learn to think on our feet. Now, there are a lot of situations where that might be important, but the way that we structure the table topics is that I have here a list of questions. The table topics participants have not seen these questions. This is going to be the first time that they hear what these questions are going to be. And they're going to have 1 to 2 minutes to actually answer that question. Pretty much come up with a mini speech. Why is this important? Well, think about the last time that your boss asked you a question. You weren't expecting to have to give a status. Or, relating this back into our travel theme, when was the last time that you had to explain the price of an airline ticket to your boss? A shopping spree to your significant other? Well, our topic today is travel and shopping. The first question will be, you are planning a vacation and you need to make a choice. Choice 1, first class luxury travel to one destination. Or choice 2, booking the cheapest possible travel, but you can go to 3 destinations. Which would you choose and why? And to answer that question, I'm going to bring up Nee Mensa, who's a member of 2 San Francisco clubs, Evening Stars and Spokesmasters.
I absolutely love first class. You walk into the airline first, you take a seat, you're offered a refreshing beverage, maybe a couple of pretzels, and then a cocktail. You can't beat it, but I can't afford it. My wife prides herself on being realistic. And by realistic, I mean not spending a penny more than she needs to for just about anything. Now, I know myself, I probably would be the first to say, let us enjoy some luxury, we deserve it. But we are traveling, not me. So to be prudent, unless I intend to meander around that one place by myself, we will be enjoying a lovely vacation in 3 destinations. Mrs. Table Topics Master.
You might want to sign up for a frequent flyer program. Get the best of both worlds. Now, our second question, have any of you ever forgotten an item when you've gone on a trip? I forget the same item over and over, and now have a collection. If you are known for forgetting one particular item over and over, you just unpacked your bags in the hotel, and you find that you, yet again, have forgotten that item. What item do you now need to go purchase locally? And to answer that question, I will bring up Oksana Walton, who's a member of the San Mateo Pro Masters Club, and who just ran her first marathon.
Who doesn't like to travel? I love to travel. Well, Birgit mentioned I have run my first marathon. To make it more interesting, I ran it in Paris. So you can imagine there is a little bit of a preparation and a lot of packing, and the things that you really need to have with you are the things that you don't want to worry once you get to your marathon destination. And that is shoes, need those. That is the outfit. I worked for months to color coordinate everything. That is your jelly packages to make sure that you are keeping your sustainable energy. And that is your boyfriend. I packed that one. And it was the best trip ever. April, Paris, marathon, and boyfriend. Don't forget one of those. You'd have a fabulous trip. Thank you.
You see, we have a lot of frequent travelers here. Now, when I go on a trip, I tend to get some souvenirs once in a while. Now, of course, we've all seen the touristy t-shirt shops, etc. And sometimes we see that one special item that you can really only get in that place. You are starting a tradition of sharing your vacation with your friends and family. Now, you've never done this before, so this will be the first time, but it's going to set a precedence. Now, do you decide to browse the touristy or the local shops? What do you decide is going to be that traditional item that you want to bring back to your friends and family? To answer that question, I'm going to bring up Elaine Lung. She is a member of the Xilinx Expressionists in San Jose, and she is the incoming Division C governor.
Thank you, Birgit. I love traveling, and I love traveling in Europe. Do you know why? Because they have wonderful chocolate there. Wonderful chocolate. Now, I didn't know this until I got married, because I married wisely. I married someone who loves to travel, and I married someone who loves to plan how to travel realistically. So we go to multiple destinations, we travel lightly, we have a great time, and we always save room in the suitcase for chocolate. My husband knows the different virtues of chocolate from France, from Belgium, and he has 4 rankings of his favorite chocolate. And now that we travel together, I have the privilege of learning all these different types of chocolate with him and bringing it home with us to share with our friends and family. So I have a tradition, and it is new, and it's buying exotic chocolate in exotic locations and sharing it with friends and family.
Now, of course, I did advertise that the questions are going to be a little bit more about shopping and not just about travel. course, there are shopaholics that travel all over the world. I took a business trip to Singapore, and the first thing that everybody asked me was, did you go shopping? I didn't realize that some people actually go there just to go shopping because the prices are so cheap. Now, there are others that will visit Fashion Week in Paris because of the haute couture that they can see there. Now, our next table topic speaker is going to answer the question, to what exotic destination would you travel if your purpose is specifically to shop? To answer that question, please help me welcome Kristen Fredericks. She is a member of the Santa Clara Sweet Talkers in San Jose, or Santa Clara. She's also a member of Evening Stars in San Francisco and was the 2008 District 4 Table Topics winner.
1, 2, cha-cha-cha. 1, 2, cha-cha-cha. If you're like me, you love to dance, and I recently just got into ballroom dancing, specifically the cha-cha. However, after a few months, I decided I needed to branch out. I was quickly becoming obsessed with the culture, and I decided to try the Argentine tango. Now, as it turns out, I have a trip planned to Argentina, and I fully intend on reserving a whole suitcase just for tango shoes. Obviously, the Argentine tango started in Argentina, and I have a friend who is down there now. She tells me the shoes are so cheap. It's like putting quarters in a gumball machine. The colors are so vibrant. You can practically just taste it. The shoes are so gorgeous, they melt in your hands. So while I'm not specifically going there for tango shoes, it certainly doesn't hurt, and you can certainly expect me to come back with an extra suitcase or two. Madam Table Topics.
I have to admit that one of the reasons I picked this topic is because on my normal trips to Germany, I tend to go with a half-empty suitcase. Reason being is I tend to buy a lot of fashions when I'm over there. And people keep saying, well, why do you do that? Because it's not really cheaper there. Well, the reason I do that is because the fashions are different. So hopefully we've all enjoyed our impromptu speaking on the topics of travel and of shopping. And now I would like to turn it back over to our Toastmaster.
Thank you, Birgit. So that's table topics. You know, I had another one as I was listening to the questions and everyone talking. What if someone else in your family goes on a trip and brings back something for you? Now, sometimes my parents go on trips and they bought me this tie. I like this tie. All right? I don't mind this tie. This tie I like. But they once went to Alaska and they brought back these bright red nylon suspenders that said Alaska down them. I'm like, how am I ever going to wear that? But it's great. I really, you know me, Mom and Dad. I can't fool you. No way. So now that was the table topics portion, obviously, and you kind of get a feel for how it's just impromptu. And I want to let everyone know that we hid the questions. These were all impromptu. Nobody knew what the questions were. Just the audience out there, okay? We're going to the third portion of our meeting, and that's the general evaluation. Here's where we learn the most, because the evaluators are going to come up. They're going to tell the speakers their strong points, their weak points, how they can improve. But also, we bring up the grammarian, the timer, the all counter, and they're going to tell us how everyone spoke and how the meeting went and where to clue in on your deficiencies. So, to start this all off, I'm going to bring up our general evaluator. Please welcome Dennett Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. We've meandered quite a ways. And as our Toastmaster said, we have three pillars. First is our prepared speeches. Second was our non-prepared speeches, as I call the table topics. And third, as we'll move into now, our evaluations. To start us off, our first evaluator will be, well, he'll be giving some feedback to our first speaker to tell him what he could do more effectively to get dates. And Also, to let all of us know just how many phone numbers he now has. Please help me welcome our first speaker, our first evaluator, Richard Banning.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Scott's objectives were to amuse us, and amuse us he did with a speech that had a clear beginning, middle, and end. I'm going to focus my comments on 3 aspects of Scott's speech that I thought made it very funny, and 3 suggestions which might make the speech even better. First of all, his choice of topic. If you're going to give a funny speech, what topic could you pick that would be better than internet dating? Now, Scott did, I think, a very effective job of mining that field for a lot of unusual stories and particularly unusual characters. Who did we meet in Scott's speech? Well, we met the 38-year-old divorcee with multiple profiles and personalities. We met the woman whose definition of a sexy man is someone with good oral hygiene, someone who flosses. And finally, the woman who's looking for the man of her life who's already pregnant. An interesting group of people. Also, besides the topic, I'd like to compliment Scott on his word choice. You notice when he started out, he talked about how he had posted an edgy, provocative photo of himself. Beautiful words, profiles that were bizarre, and of course that unusual pregnant woman who called herself Smooch Mama. When you hear things like that, just those sounds alone, the connotations of those words, just made you sit up and pay attention and just make the whole story that much more vibrant. And finally, I have to compliment Scott on that beautiful speaking voice. Did you notice that, how beautifully he speaks and how he effectively used vocal variety, variations in pitch, variations in speed, speeding up and then slowing down. Techniques like that which made the entire story come alive. Absolutely beautiful. How could Scott have made this speech even better? Some suggestions. Since the whole point is to have an impact on the audience, to engage us, to make us laugh, I'd suggest that Scott do more movement, not just stand in one place, but to take full advantage of the stage space, and also not be afraid to approach the audience, even go into the audience. If you're being funny, all of that will work, and the audience will play with you. Also, use of eye contact. I noticed that Scott a number of times would look down at the floor, probably while he was letting his next thought float to the top of his head. But as Toastmasters, we have to learn to think while we are looking someone directly in the eyes. And then go to the next sentence and give that to a person. And then speak to someone else and let that eye contact move us over to another part of the stage. Those are 2 things I think Scott might have done that could make his speech even more impactful. And finally, just a note, Scott's pacing at the very beginning was so fast, I thought he must have a taxi outside waiting for him. He certainly wasn't guilty of meandering, but I suggest when he starts out that he keep his pace a little bit slower. All in all, Scott, what can I say? You should write a book, man. You are one funny guy. Mr. Toastmaster.
Moving along, for our second speaker, I'll be calling up our second evaluator to give some feedback on how they did. So please help me welcome evaluator number 2, Niles Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and most particularly Mark. Good, brilliant, I should say, brilliant, sophisticated, and right. You were waiting there for a moment because Mark used this so effectively in his speech, and when he said brilliant, sophisticated, and wrong. It was a beautiful setup and an example of very sophisticated use of speech techniques, because from that moment on you had us. You had given an introduction, and now you were going into the body of your speech, and with just those 3 words, spaced so well, we were in the palm of your hands. Brilliantly done, high class, sign of a great speaker. Your opening was fantastic. Evil pricing schemes of companies, particularly airlines. We heard the table topics about traveling. We've all been there. You had us. The interest was aroused, and if I didn't know what a PhD in pricing could mean and how that could turn into an interesting speech, tonight I learned. You did it very well. You were sophisticated, as a speaker also because you used strong vocal variety. And you brought emotional content to the way you spoke about pricing schemes and what can happen when you discover that prices all of a sudden change in these irrational ways as you're trying to visit your mother for Christmas. Brilliantly done. The information that you presented was powerfully delivered, logical, easy to follow, great use of these visual aids that you had. What can I say? There's a few things that I would suggest where you improve. When you're speaking, I think you have a tendency to overuse the right hand. You're standing here, and it is this hand that I see very elegantly, but this one moves. This one comes into play every now and then. But so I would suggest that you pay attention to use of both hands in a little bit more variety than you've done so far. When you have these visual aids, when the Tuesday pricing is the title of your speech, and you have a visual aid, make that line bold and big rather than dotted. Because when I'm sitting in the back, and I had to really squint to see that there was actually a dotted line, which was the Tuesday line, which was the point of your speech. So think about the distance that you have to reach with the visual aid. It was farther than was effective right now. And then finally, what I would suggest, when you give a speech, make sure that towards the end you still have the energy level up that you had at the beginning. Because you started to flatten out a little bit. And your vocal variety started to flatten out a little bit as well. The emotional content was not as powerful as it had been in the beginning. If you bring that same emotional content to the end, pow, we will all be turning into PhDs in pricing. Mr. General Evaluator.
It's great to point out how our speaker meandered on their energy levels. That concludes our prepared evaluation portion of the meeting. So now I'm going to bring up some helpers. Actually, I was just testing to see if our counter will catch the that I just said. Please help me welcome our counter, Mike Barson.
My job is to count the ums, ahs, and filler words, and you had me very nervous tonight because there were no ums, ahs, and filler words. However, thank goodness, Niels came up with an And Dennett, I know you gave me that one, but okay. So here we go. All right, I had 8. Did I have 8? There we are. Now I got to tell you though, filler word. I'm hearing and a lot in filler words. A lot of you were using a transition and, but you were so good on the lack of ums and ahs. I forgive you for that, Dennett, please.
The point of that report is for us to learn when we become speakers to just pause instead of putting in a filler word and to be more comfortable with speaking. And also, as a side note, you'll see when you listen to other people's speeches, you're going to sit there and start counting how many times they use ums and ahs. That means that you're becoming a true Toastmaster. Another thing we do to become true Toastmasters is we time each other. It's great in case you're ever arguing with your spouse. Pull up that red card whenever. I'm going to now ask our timer to come up and give us a report on how we're doing on our time. Please help me welcome our timer, Miriam Knopp.
Thank you, Mr. Master Evaluator. I'm glad Mike did his report before I spoke because I use ums and ahs all the time. My role as a timekeeper is to keep track of time. We have different sections when we speak, and we have different limits. We have speakers, we have evaluators, we have table topic speakers. Today we had 2 speakers. The time limit was 5 to 7 minutes. Scott spoke for 6 minutes and 59 seconds. Mark 6 minutes and 37 seconds. We had 2 evaluators. The time limit was between 2 and 3 minutes. Richard, 2 minutes 55 seconds, and Niles, exactly 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And we had 4 table topic speakers. Nee was the limit was between 1 and 2 minutes. Nee spoke for 1 minute and 13 seconds. Elaine, 1 minute and 3 seconds. And Kristen, 1 minute and 11 seconds. Mr. Master.
Now that we know how we did on time, let's find out how we did with both the use of grammar and also with the use of the word. Please help me welcome our word master and grammarian, Stan Ing.
Mr. General Evaluator, the word of the day was meander, and it was used by Nee, by Art, Dennett, and Richard. In fact, Dennett used it twice, so kudos to Dennett. Now for the grammarian portion of my report. You know, when I first became a Toastmaster, that set me shivering every time I thought about it, because I thought that there's this person who's going to pick apart everything I said. So I'm not going to do that. And I would like to talk about the appropriate use of grammar, because if we really wanted to, we could rip each other apart every minute of every day. But what I want to stress here, why we do this grammarian report, is that sometimes incorrect use of grammar takes the listener out of your attention zone. And that's really why we want to keep track of grammar. It isn't that we make mistakes. We will make mistakes. But will we make a mistake such that it's inappropriate at the time? Idiots. Is that appropriate? It wasn't appropriate just now, but it was completely appropriate when Robin did her joke, because it was in the context of a joke. If you were in a business meeting or a formal situation, you wouldn't use that word, would you? So I would encourage you to loosen up a little bit and say words as they're meant to be said in colloquialisms. In a relaxed situation like this, it may make sense to loosen up your grammar. One example is when Mark said, this colleague of mine, he comes in on a Monday. That's grammatically incorrect, isn't it? It's not a complete sentence, but it makes perfect sense because you're trying to establish rapport with us. And using the colloquialism of somebody telling a story around a water cooler on a Monday morning, that's perfectly legal to do. In fact, it's desirable to do. I want to compliment Nils on his evaluation because he picked up on a very brilliant grammatical use of inventive words by Mark. His triplet, brilliant, sophisticated, and wrong. Nils harkened back to that by saying brilliant, sophisticated, and right. I think you showed a very, very inventive mind by playing off that triplet that Mark used very effectively, and then you turned around and used effectively to get attention to your speech as well. So kudos on that. So that's my report. This is a very advanced group. I don't think you really need that much help on your grammar. I just want to admonish you to relax a little bit, and that's all I want to leave you with. All right?
Ain't that so, Stan? Good on you, mate. You've been a very skilled audience. Now it's time for me to give some evaluation of the meeting, point out some things that we did well, perhaps a few areas we could improve on, such as relaxing, as Stan pointed out. I wanted to first point out that both the evaluators, they got up, they stood on this side, and they gave examples. We can also stand on this side while you're giving your examples, but I really like the way that they pointed out areas for our speakers to work on or they gave them suggestions, and when they gave them suggestions, they did so by providing samples, whether it was with arm movement or just in presenting their speeches. So I think that going forward, our speakers will be able to take that message home, and they'll be able to practice. And as an evaluator, that's what you want to be doing, is you want to be coming up with a skill or something that our speakers can take away, something that they can present. As an approach I like to do, it's use your senses and just separate them out. What did you feel? What did you hear? And what did you think? If you're giving an evaluation and you didn't understand the point of the speaker's talk, let them know. Or if you did get the point of their talk, let them know. Let them know what you think the key message of their speech was. As for our Toastmaster, I thought our Toastmaster did a great job with the meeting. Came up here, took control, put in a little bit of humor, as Art often does. Used the word of the day, which gave him a bonus point too. So I enjoyed having our Toastmaster come up here. There's a couple minor little things I can ding people on. We got a few titles mixed up. Our first evaluator introduced me back as a Toastmaster instead of the general evaluator. But let's put all that aside and really take the overall content of the meeting. What did you get out of this? Did you pick up some skills as being members here? Did you see how skilled not only our speakers were, but also our table topic members? I enjoyed hearing each of the table topic members give their speeches, and I could tell they were quite skilled. I liked the way they were relaxed, they paused, they thought of their topic, and the way they presented it, and the way they thought on their feet. So, as a skilled meeting, something where we can take away and look going forward and think, what can I learn from that meeting that I can put and incorporate in my speeches going forward? And that's what I want you to be doing. Now I'm going to turn the meeting back to our Toastmaster. So please help me welcome our Toastmaster, Art.
You can stop. The timer forgot the cards. Just so that everyone out there knows, I know you're wondering, why are we laughing? What's this all about? The timer, who you saw up here, Miriam, she's out in the audience, and as we're speaking, this means you hit the minimum, all right? You've made it. If you go below the minimum, you don't get credit for the speech. And then as she flips the card, and the yellow means, well, you're halfway to the maximum. And then if she flips the red card, this means shut up. No more talking. It's almost over. So Miriam, I'm going to give this back to you. I don't need it. Because, you know, Toastmasters, we get to talk as long as we want. There's no timing for us. So again, I want to thank our two speakers, our evaluators, our timer, our Auctioner, our grammarian, our general evaluator, our table topics master. I hope you at home get an understanding of what a Toastmasters meeting is all about and how it all works. This is actually how a Toastmasters meeting goes. Say that 3 times fast. So again, if you're wondering, how do I get into a Toastmasters club? You first go to d4tm.org. Okay, and all you have to do is put in your zip code and where or when you want to do the speech, whether it's morning or lunchtime, afternoon, late afternoon, night. It'll find it. The computer will find out where you can go that'll match your criteria. And there's usually 2 types of clubs too. There's the corporate club, where I'm a part of a corporate club. So the corporation usually pays for your membership. That's cool. Sometimes they provide lunch. And you have a conference meeting, or I'm sorry, use a conference room to have your meeting. Then there's more like the country club style, where it could be at you know, school, library, a bar. You know, that's where your tabletop is. You're drinking a beer saying, yeah, I'll tell that cup what to do. So those are the different types of meetings. And just if you're going there for your first time, okay, just words of advice from experience. I've been in it 4 years. The first one you do is an introductory of yourself. Okay, it's called Icebreaker. When you get up there, and everyone's probably done this, so don't worry about it. If it happens to you, you have to let go of the podium. And like this. And breathe, because really, if you don't breathe, it's hard to talk. Just try to. I can hear the words in my head, but nothing's coming out. So, words of advice, again, you want to breathe. Let it all come out. All right. Finally, you know, I was thinking, I'm always thinking, things always happen that way. And I haven't been drinking, so, Mom, don't worry about it. But I want to give a table topics to the people at home, okay? People who are watching and thinking, well, you know, pop me a question, let me try this thing. So if you're there, get ready. Here's a question, and I'm totally serious. I know you're going to laugh at this question, but I am serious. All right, consider this. Let's say that you're in a public official. You know, it could be a mayor, governor, president, you know, and you want a law that's really going to help the people. You're going to pass something and say, this is for sure going to help everyone. It's going to make America better. And what you do is you say, I'm going to pass a law that if you can't read, you have to go, if you can't read, you can't get out of jail. All right? So let's think about this, because if you can't read, how are you ever going to get a job? How are you ever going to improve yourself, right? So the real thing I want you guys to think of at home is talk about that. Not saying that the police are going to knock on your door and give you a reading test. No, no. If you go to jail, you can't get out until you can read. All right? That's just my personal opinion. Everyone else has their own opinions. But at home, try that. Folks, we're coming to the end of our meeting. I appreciate you all being here and the support. And again, if you can get to a Toastmasters Club, if you're in San Jose, San Francisco, or Monterey area, it's www.d4tm.org. Thank you all. Have a good night.